Welcome to The World Awaits.
Travel tales to inspire your wanderlust.
I'm Kirstie Bedford, journalist, editor and travel writer.
And I'm Belle Jackson, author, travel journalist and columnist, and we're your weekly co-hosts.
Welcome back, everyone. Can you believe it's only a little more than 2 weeks until Christmas? Oh, what a year it's been. What have been your highlights, Kirstie?
Well, that would, of course, be launching our podcast. And and my milestone birthday that I had this year, which we won't go into. And also going on assignment for Signature Media to Norway was obviously incredible. And my story's out now in the latest issue of Vacations and Travel, and it's in newsstands if anyone wants to grab a copy or give one away as a Christmas present. And I will.
It's a good idea,
isn't it? And I will chat about that, more about that next week, because over the next 2 weeks we thought we'll do something a little different, and we're going to give you a bit of a lowdown on the places that we've recently been to that you might also be interested in travelling to. So this week I'm going to put my co-host Belle under the spotlight, and we're going to talk about Saudi, which is, I think, a place that fascinates a lot of people, but a lot of people either don't know a lot about it or they have concerns about visiting. But anyway, what were some of your highlights this year, Belle?
Well, yes, these shiny little awards that I am staring at from the recent Australian Society of Travel Writers, that was pretty cool. Also, taking my daughter to London at an age where she can remember things. I think returning to Turkey, it's been too long since I went to one of my favourite countries. Turkey was just so good to be back in that country this year. And of course, our other baby, the podcast, is enormous. And the last one, because can never have too many, is returning to Saudi Arabia.
Yes. So let's move on to Saudi actually. So for those who've never been, why would they consider going there? And look, I know you've probably got lots of reasons, but let's just stick just for the purposes of time, because you know how we can talk, Belle.
Underwater. Yep.
Let's just stick to the top 3 reasons why you think someone should put Saudi on their travel to-do list.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons is that it was it is one of the newest countries to open up to tourism. It was closed off to the West for decades, and that, that created a mystique and I was totally so. I used to stand. This is quite bizarre. When I lived in Egypt, I would stand on the coastline in the far east of Egypt, and you could look across to Saudi Arabia on the other side of the other side of the water, and you'd see the moon rising up over the mountains there, and you just think, I can't go, because until it started freeing up in from 2017 onward, the main people that were going there were religious tourists. They go for Hajj, and so I couldn't go. I couldn't go because I wasn't going for to visit Mecca. And if I did go as a woman, I had to be with either with a male relative. So I was in the position where my father had died. I wasn't married, and neither of my brothers wanted to go to Saudi Arabia. So I wasn't going there anytime soon. So I think the mystique is a really, really big reason that I was drawn to, wanting to know. I travelled a lot in the Middle East, and there's this massive city, this massive country that's a powerhouse of the region, 40 million people, and I just had this incredible gap of knowledge about how it influences the whole of those regions. So that's 2 reasons. Is that okay?
So and the reasons why. So people should go, obviously, because it's really interesting to learn that that it's accessibility.
But also, I mean, it's a major player. So to jump in there, it's becoming a major player in tourism. If you look at, it's just won the hosting rights to the 2023 World Expo. The 2030 World Expo, and also the 2034 World Cup as well. So if you're into football, and then it's apparently chasing the Olympics. So that will pretty much wind up a trifecta of global events. So for those reasons, coming up in the next few years, you'll find people having, different reasons about why they might visit Saudi Arabia.
Mm. And the landscape and culture must play, obviously, a big part of people's decision-making to go there too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you love deserts, which I do, if you love beautiful coastline, which also, love a turquoise sea, it's got that mix of them all. fabulous mountains, great hiking. It has things, unexpected things like monkeys and down in the south, which is still yet to be developed from a tourism perspective, and crumbling mud brick fortresses on desert plains and that whole mystic. If you ever watched Lawrence of Arabia and stuff like that on those big epic screens, then the sort of romance that I'm talking about when you think, I just want to, get lost in that incredible landscape.
And I think that's a really good point, is that incredible diversity that people may not even realise is there. So, right, well, let's cover off a few of the elephants in the room. So it has only been a few years since strict dress regulations and mandatory gender segregation and a ban on women drivers were abolished.
Yeah. The women driver thing has really captured Australians' imagination, I think. It's kind of funny. Yes, it was. There was a ban on women driving. However, I met women who were working in out of the main cities. Especially if they were working in agriculture, and all of the Bedouin women had always driven anyway. And then I was talking to a girl who lived in Riyadh, and I was like, "So, what do you think about this whole thing on women drivers?" And she was like, I don't want to drive. Are you for real? Terrible traffic jams. I sit in the back. The guy sits in the front driving and sweating and, jumping in and out of lanes. I'm in the back. I'm working. I'm doing my social media. I'm, calling people. I'm organising stuff. I'm busy. So do I want to give up those 2 hours that I spend sitting in the car? And I was like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. Which do I like better? Do I like better sitting in the back of an Uber and doing all of the stuff that I've got to do? Or do I like being in the driver's seat sweating and arguing? But, now you've got a choice on it. Considering too that you've got a population that isn't always wealthy, and so you've got different levels of income. So, not everybody is going to be an engineer or something. That, it does create employment as well. Which is quite different to in the West, where we are expected, particularly as women, to do everything, from mowing the lawn to cleaning houses and stuff like that. There's much more of a spread of employment in the Middle East, which I kind of like, because everybody has, a cleaner. It's just normal. I'm like, oh, I love it.
So you've seen this drastic change in obviously the way that women are treated there, and obviously they've still got a long way to go. But I mean, it feels like, obviously things are shifting and there's a lot of women who are involved in the tourism industry. What about as a traveller going there, a female traveller, what are some things that I have to be aware of? And what about, because clearly particularly, of the way of women, and obviously there's been some good positive changes, but because of that, does that then impact me as a female traveller and the way that I have to act and dress and how I can conduct myself when I'm visiting?
Look, I don't think that's so much of an issue now. Part of that opening up of Saudi Arabia was that women didn't have to cover their hair or wear abayas, which are those long cloaks that you throw over your clothes anymore. So, there's only a couple of countries left and regions that enforce that, like Iran and Aceh in Indonesia, that have these requirements. You have to cover your hair. Saudi let it go. The first time I visited, which was just after COVID, most women were still wearing abayas and covering their hair. But even just 18 months later, I'm finding the country significantly opening up. So, a lot more women don't cover their hair. And there is no compulsion for me to cover my hair unless I'm going into a mosque or places like that. And this is not the only country in the world that appreciates, slightly more modest dressing. And by that I mean, covering down past your elbows. But then that is, that's changing so quickly in Saudi. It was kind of weird. I even saw girls in crop tops and yoga pants in one of the more touristy areas. And I was like, are you for real? I was kind of second guessing it, going, oh, that's a little interesting. And so I asked the Saudi guide, a man who was with us, and he was like, oh, you foreigners, you just wear whatever you want. And the first time I went, I interviewed a tourism guide, a woman, and she was saying, Saudis, like everybody has social media, everybody has TV. Saudis, especially the upper echelon, spend their lives traveling between the great cities. You know, they're in London, they're in New York all of the time. They might be over in Rome. Bali is a bit of a hotspot for the Middle East, for Middle Eastern travellers, and Thailand has always been there. So it's not a shock. You know, it's not a surprise to see how Westerners dress. But there is a sense that, look, hot pants aren't a great idea. You know, like, I wouldn't go around with me hot pants and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm okay with that. Don't need to get the hot pants out today. And as I said before, you know, the funny thing is that sometimes modesty and fashion actually collide. Like if you look at the maxi dress, massive trend. All you've got to do for a woman is just chuck your favourite maxi on and a pair of slides and off you go, you know, and it's so sensible because this is a really hot desert climate. So if you've got a gorgeous flowy printed cotton maxi dress on, you are perfect for the environment. You don't want to get sunburnt anyway as well because it is quite strong sun. So sometimes fashion does play straight into our hands. And, you know, that trend for long cardigans and stuff like that is, you know, basically that's like a trimmed down version of an abaya. So you can be fashionable, and Saudi women are very appreciative of good fashion.
Okay, so what are some of the places that you'd recommend to anyone wanting to go, and what time of year should they go to those places?
Riyadh is the capital of Saudi, and it's quite funny, you know, it's very dry inland heat. Bizarrely, what I was hearing in Dubai a couple of years ago was that people saying to each other, let's go to Riyadh for the weekend. Never would anybody say that. And the success of that is what's the Riyadh season, which is basically 6 months of incredible festivals, concerts, food, events, sporting events. You know, the big names, all of the big names in entertainment are performing there over a period of 6 months, and that has made it such a destination for people in the region. But it's also got fantastic fortresses, you know, those mud brick fortresses where the Saud state was established, and they've been preserved, but they're also really cool. You know, they've got light displays and museum pieces, but also, you know, chic little cafes and stuff. So I think, you know, Riyadh gives you a sense of it's very Saudi, whereas Jeddah, which is the second city, has always been Saudi's most open city. It's a coastal city. It's on the Red Sea. And it has always been the gateway for tourists going to visit Mecca, which is not open to non-Muslims, and that's about 40 minutes by high-speed train away. But when you go to Jeddah, the thing to do there is, because it's on the coast, you eat fabulous seafood, and this is what I did last time. We took a boat about 25 kilometres offshore to these incredible lagoons, and we were just snorkeling amongst this neon coral, like absolutely neon, the sort of stuff that I think I might have seen as a child on the Great Barrier Reef. I don't want to say that because Queensland's going to cry at me. But, you know, the marine life there, the water is absolutely pristine. It's a beautiful place to be there. But if you can, the place that steals my heart is Al Ula, which is in the northwest up by the Jordanian border. It is incredible. It's the first of what Saudi is calling its giga project, its giga tourism projects. You know, we've seen the talk of NEOM, you know, and these incredible tourism ventures that they're planning on the coastline. Al Ula is an old oasis town. Nobody ever used to go there up until, like, you know, a few years ago. Nobody ever went to Al Ula, except if they were visiting family. The draw card there is Hegra, which is an ancient city that is the sister city to Petra across the border in Jordan. And the fact is that the two are now linked up by a cross-border road, just like when the Nabateans built them, you know, a couple of thousand years ago. The difference is that while 1 million people visit Petra each year, there might be just 50 people a day, and that's only 20,000 people in a whole year in Hegra. And it plans to keep that sort of low tourism there. But you're in this beautiful oasis. You've got, you know, incredible resorts hidden in desert canyons. It's got, you know, dark sky tourism, so you can do sound bathing and wellness stuff in these desert canyons. But then also they're really cool. You know, they've got cafes on the top of the mountain, on mountaintops, where, you know, I saw Saudi princesses there drinking their you know, their pomegranate iced tea and things like that as the sun went down. And it's really cool. You know, Bruno Mars had just finished playing there, and in some of the rock formations, it's got the world's largest mirrored building, which sounds horrific, but actually because it's mirrored, it has this, it dissolves into the landscape. And inside that, it's got a concert hall where people like Andre Bocelli have sung. And then on the rooftop, it has a restaurant run by a Michelin star chef. And that's what makes it so crazy. And is that if you had a wild idea, a dream, an idea, you go, I know, let's just do these enormous mega sculptures and stick them in a desert. Saudi's thinking of that, but it's also got the money to put into it. So that's what makes it so extraordinary. And that's why I think that there will be more discussion about it. That, you know, it is, you know, it does have, you know, it does. You do have to address things such as human rights. And I think it would be remiss not to mention, you know, Saudi's past. But at the same time, when you see some of the imagination, and, you know, I can't count how many Australians are working there. There are people from all over the world in this enormous social experiment with a government that's just chucking the money at it. It can only be one to watch.
Amazing. And so much in that to unpack. People will be madly rewinding to try and take in all of that. Yeah, incredible varying places to see and things to do. All right. Well, let's just cover off lastly, what's the easiest way to get there, and what about visas?
Yeah, look, it's really easy. It's a skip hop from Australia. Fly into, probably the easiest is to fly into Dubai, which is really well connected, and therefore it's about 3 hour. It's about a 3 hour jump to Riyadh, Jeddah, or even into that tiny little oasis of Ulula, which has an international airport there. It's worth noting too the rise of low cost carriers in the Middle East, as well as Air Saudia, which is a national carrier. And then there's a new second national carrier, Riyadh Air, which is going to launch in 2025, which is already threatening to take on Emirates, Etihad and Qatar. And, you know, it has incredible plans. Could even fly direct from Australia. I don't know about that, but yeah, visas are really easy. It's e-visas take about 10 minutes to get online. It is pricey. You know, at about $130, but that includes its own travel insurance, and that's for a 1 year visa. And, you know, interestingly, like many countries, Saudi is moving toward a cashless society. So I just use my credit card everywhere instead of actually physically having rials. But, you know, whatever side of the fence you fall on, it's mind-boggling. So if you'd like to read a bit more about it, I've published several pieces for the Sydney Morning Herald, for Gourmet Traveller, and also Signature Luxury Travel and Style magazine. And I'll put a link to those stories in the show notes.
It's so interesting. I genuinely, I haven't been, and you've definitely made me more excited to want to go. So, and also reading your stories. I mean, it just sounds, from the photos, just looks truly an incredible place. So, it's so great to hear about it, and hear about a place that I think a lot of people really want to go, but either maybe hadn't thought it was safe or had reservations about the distance and the culture. So it's really good to go through all of that. Right. This week we have an exciting name in the food industry for you. I'm interviewing Lyndey Milan, who is the author of 9 cookbooks, has had 9 culinary TV series. She was the former food director at the Women's Weekly, and now she's guiding gourmands around the world, sharing her insatiable passion for food.
But first, we have a giveaway. You could win one of 3 double movie passes to a new movie called 2 Tickets to Greece, which is a comedy about childhood friends who reunite in the Greek Isles. The big draw cards for me are Kristen Scott Thomas, love her, and writer-director Mark Fatoussi, who is the director of Call My Agent. To win, all you have to do is drop us a line using the contact form on our website at theworldawaits.au, or send us an email at hello@theworldawaits.au and tell us why you'd like to win a holiday in Greece. So the movie, 2 Tickets to Greece, launches in cinemas on Boxing Day, but there is also a gala preview cinema at Palace Cinemas and other independent cinemas on Sunday the 10th of December, which includes a drink and a gift bag on arrival. And if you book your ticket to the movies before January 10, you go into the running to win a trip for 2 to Greece. So find out more, visit palacecinemas.com.au or 2ticketstogreece.com.au, or drop us a line and win a double pass.
You're listening to The World Awaits. We'd love it if you could leave us a rating and review on your favourite podcast platform.
Lyndey Milan's illustrious food career has led to her being one of Australia's most recognised food and cooking show personalities, and she's now guiding others with a love of all things culinary around the globe. Welcome to the show, Lyndey.
Thanks for having me. It's fun.
It's so great to have you here. So let's start today by telling us about how you came to get into the industry and specifically in travel and specifically into food.
Well, food's a very long story and it started a very long time ago, I have to say. So look, I've written for, every publishing house, been on every TV station and whatever. It all came out of really a catering business a long time ago. But it's probably better to talk about how that moved into travel as well, because a big part of food, of course, is travel. And the thing is, the minute you're away from home, you are definitionally eating the food of, that you can get wherever you are. And I guess after, nearly a decade as food director of the Australian Women's Weekly, I had decided that I wanted to do other things. And so I continued on with that. That's when I started making my own international TV series. So it was after that we made sort of Lindy and Blair's Taste of Greece, and then Lyndey Milan's Taste of Ireland, and then Taste of Australia, Movable Feast with Herbie, baking shows, Christmas shows. And, I guess I thought that as I got older too, that I have a lot to offer. And my knowledge of food and travel, I wanted to really bring them together. So, especially being Australian, in Australia, we eat the cuisine of every country, let's face it. And so, for example, I first went to Morocco in 1978. I went back in 1994 with the International Olive Oil Council for an amazing trip. So that was incredible. So it was a great idea to come up with that. But before that, in 2015, I started hosting cruises where people would come and they'd book to go with me. We'd do land content for 3 days first, a 10-day Mediterranean cruise of some type, and then 4 days after. So I did 3 of those, 2015, 2016, 2017. So then I decided that I wanted to do land content as well. And I had been to Puglia with Southern Visions, who are the travel agency that work there. They're award-winning. They're amazing. And I went there in 2013 and I loved it. And Puglia then especially was very undiscovered. It was where Italians go on holiday. And I just loved it. So I'd been thinking about that then. So in 2018, I hosted my first tour to Puglia and it was brilliant. So my philosophy with taking people on tours is that, first of all, I work with a travel company that is a specialist in that area. So in Puglia, Southern Visions. The next year I went to Japan with Mary Rossi Travel. Morocco is by prior arrangement. So they're specialists in their area. The other thing too is to go off the beaten track. I want to take people places they can't go as independent travellers. We get special entree to places and that works really, really well. And of course, we always have a bilingual tour host. So we've got the local who's bilingual, and then we'll have specialist guides in each sort of destination, because much as they're culinary trips, they're also cultural as well. And, if you're going to go to Albarabello, the place with those incredible Truly roofs, you want to have an expert from Albarabello to take you around. So we do, a walking tour there as well. So but then you also get your hands into it, making fresh mozzarella. It's amazing. We make bread the traditional way. We forage and then have a cooking class. But it's not all cooking. There's plenty of other stuff. We go to wineries and, each country's different, of course, but it's incredible. So that's what I do. I still write. I still do guest TV appearances. But I just feel with the travel, I'm a people person. So I love it. I absolutely love it. And all of my tours, the people bond and remain friends. They remain lifelong friends. It's incredible.
What are some of the
biggest changes you've seen, given obviously you've been doing, traveling and touring and eating and experiencing in sort of culinary travel? What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen, do you think, in the last sort of decade or so?
Well, it's different in different countries. What I was surprised by in Morocco last year was that because of the cost of extra virgin olive oil, they're now starting to use other oils as well. Of course, they use argan oil to dress salads and in cosmetics. But that surprised me. But there's a big olive oil, scandal going on in Europe because olive oil from different countries is rebadged. But still the food was very traditional in Morocco, and that was part of its charm. There's certainly a growing wine culture, which is really interesting for a predominantly Muslim country. But there is a burgeoning wine industry. The French have really helped with that. There used to be one, and then they pulled all the trees out at one stage, but that's happening. I think what's happened in Puglia is interesting with wine because they've always had the food. I mean, they're located in between two islands. They have more days of sunshine than anywhere else. And it's amazing because it's largely a peasant culture, which is terrific. You might go somewhere where it's a lot of vegetables that you eat, or you might go somewhere on the coast and it's seafood just pulled out of the sea, like sea urchin. They're pulled out of the sea and you eat them straight away. And then you go to these amazing places. Now, these are still very traditional, and it's like going into a butcher shop. And you choose what you want, and then they cook it and bring to the table. So you just get that, with a salad. But again, what I'm seeing in Puglia, because it's getting more popular, is once again the wine. I mean, there's a very good winery we go to, Lavelli, and it's from a wine family from Tuscany. And quite some years ago, they decided that they would set up somewhere else, and they are doing some really, really, really good wines. So, that's good. And also you're starting to find some more boutique accommodation. We stay in noble houses and palaces, which are only classified as 4-star, but that's because they don't have a 24-hour concierge. That whole rating system, and they don't have 24-hour room service, but they are absolutely beautiful. But, I think what's interesting is people were traveling more, and then of course there was the pandemic and people stopped, but I think people are really keen to travel again. And what I try to do is take my people to places that are unspoiled. We don't want to be, you don't want to be in Venice with all those people.
No. Yeah, absolutely. And are you seeing it, increasingly, and even, I mean, obviously it's happening back home in Australia, we're seeing a lot more awareness in regards to sustainability, and obviously the whole paddock to plate thing's been around for such a long time, but are you seeing more of an evolution in what's happening there? I mean, either back home or internationally.
Well, I think what's interesting is, and if we want to talk about, Puglia and Morocco in particular, they're not highly industrialized places, which is really interesting. I'll never forget when I went and did my TV series in Ireland. It was amazing because things weren't necessarily labelled organic, but they were, because Ireland never had an industrial revolution. And the quality of the produce there is extraordinary. What they did with it wasn't necessarily all that fabulous, but it's certainly improved a lot. But I think what's interesting in places like Puglia and Morocco, but in Puglia, there's a lot of family businesses. I mean, we go to a place where he's got 70 cows that this guy milks, and it goes straight into and the milk goes straight into the dairy, and that's where he makes the cheese. And we go there and we see that, and then we sit in the farmhouse and, and eat the food that they eat. I mean, it's amazing. And I think what's interesting is that these families who are doing this now, they're getting more and more revered for what they're doing because they've kept the old traditions alive. I mean, bread in Puglia. you can only get the yeast that you're allowed to use from the university. Like, it's really controlled. And so it's got the equivalent, it's got, the DOC, Denomination Origin Contrôlée. It's just incredible. It's just, I think you feel the history through the food.
Yes.
And yet the food's delicious, and therefore the food is timeless. I mean, when you have really fresh burrata, I mean, oh my God, they've been making it for thousands of years. It's really is extraordinary. We go and see an olive tree that is over 3,000 years old. Well, it's at least 3,000 years old, because that's as far as they can sort out the carbon dating. And it's still got leaves that come out and a few olives that come out every year. I mean, this whole estate, there's trees. You can see how they were set out in the Roman way. I mean, unbelievable. And the olive oil's sensational. And I'll tell you what's so interesting. So here are these really old olive trees set out like the Romans did, and yet they've all got chips in them, and they are controlled by a satellite, because you are not allowed to destroy or move an olive tree. You are the caretaker of the trees. The olive trees are part of Pugliese territory. It's just extraordinary. So here you've got this really modern thing with the satellite, and yet here are these trees, and of course they're all grown, and you get to see. There's a little sort of museum, and it's not very flash, but you go down and you can see how the Romans used to crush their olives. I mean, this is all underground, and then from the Middle Ages, it's just extraordinary.
It's so nice to hear your passion and enthusiasm, given, you've travelled obviously there so many times, and obviously you've got these new tours going next year, which we'll put all the links in the show notes so people can find them and join you, because I want to join you after hearing all about this. And obviously we should also point out that you've got 9 best-selling cookbooks, is it, as well as your your tours and all your writing that you've done. So there's
and 9 TV series, 9 international TV series. Yeah,
fantastic. So it's you're the host with the most.
I think my Taste of Australia TV series and cookbook both won Best in the World, which was great. But for me, that was an accolade for the producers. So the thing is, I think I was brought up with a regard for farmers and producers and the people who grow our food. So that's been in me, and I'm on the Council of the Royal Agricultural Society of New South Wales, where we started all the food competitions back in 1998. And I think that's what I love about these tours, is that we're getting to meet these people, and they're all characters. Like, they are all characters. It's not as if you go along and find someone boring. They're all characters, and they are absolutely passionate about what they do and how they do it and why they do it. And I think that's what's so interesting, and it's so grounding. And you see, I'll tell you, in Morocco, they live so simply, but they're so generous. There was the earthquake in Marrakesh. Well, straight away, Moroccans were sharing with the ones who had food. They shared with the others. Carol Pryor from By Prior Arrangement organised a fundraiser, which we did, and it's incredible because they've got winter coming. They need tents and blankets. But one of the things that our tour guide has said, he said the best thing you can do to help Morocco is to come and see us.
Yes,
because they were decimated by COVID with no tourism. And for people to think that they won't go, and my brother-in-law's brother has just returned, and they said Marrakesh, it was absolutely fine. Everything was, business as usual. So, it is still there. And that's the thing. And that's the thing about, as you're talking about sustainability, not only in terms of how things are grown, but also in terms of how we travel. If we are putting something back into those communities rather than just taking from them.
Absolutely. And that's just vital, like you say. And you also do a lot of charity work too.
Yeah, I guess I was also brought up to give back. And well, first of all, the Royal Agricultural Society, that's all voluntary. I went on council in 1996, so, I'm very proud of everything we do there. But when my son died suddenly from acute myeloid leukemia 12 and a half years ago, my partner and I set up a fund, Lyndey Milan Fund, to help. He was an actor, to help others going through Charles Sturt University in the theatre media. And that's been rewarding. But I've always supported Cure Cancer because they only fund brilliant young researchers at the beginning of their careers who often can't get funding from anyone else, but who think outside the square. And it is absolutely remarkable. I had a friend who was given 6 months to live when I was 16 and he was 18. And he went on to live until his sort of mid to late 60s. And that was all because of research and medication. And then more recently, I have become an ambassador for the Leukemia Foundation because that's what Blair died from. And they do amazing work. They look after all blood cancers. And look, I just feel really, really strongly about that as well. My partner's daughter is a very senior breast cancer researcher, but she's doing other things again because my partner then died 2.5 years ago from lung cancer, non-smokers lung cancer. And I just think that research is really, really important. So the other thing I'm doing is to have a John Calden annual provocation as part of the Festival of Dangerous Ideas starting next year. So that's the latest thing I've been working on.
Wonderful. The question that we ask all of our interviewees, which is, what's the most bizarre thing that's ever happened to you in your travels?
It was pretty amazing going to Antarctica over 20 years ago.
Wow.
I worked on a ship. We were sailing out of Ushuaia, and it's 2 days to get down to Antarctica. And what was the most bizarre is for me to go to a destination where it's not about the food, because it's not about the food in it. But it's a pretty extraordinary thing. And I think in terms of travel, because you can see vast tracts where there's no evidence of man at all. And the other time I felt that was in South Africa on safari. That was really, really incredible.
Look, it's been so fantastic talking to you today, and thank you for your time, Lyndey.
Wow, those tours sound truly remarkable, and you couldn't ask for a more experienced, knowledgeable and passionate guide. To learn more about the tours Lyndey is taking, visit her website, lyndeymilan.com. Our tip this week is about the best places to go if you love great food destinations, because we cannot stop talking about food. And as Lyndey pointed out, clearly Italy and Morocco are great hotspots.
So Condé Nast Traveller readers, many of us may be those, have named the best cities for food in the world. And topping the list was San Sebastian in Spain, which is a little seaside region seen to be the culinary capital of Spain. Others on the list are Naples, because, pizza, amazing pizza.
Yum. And staying in Rome, in Italy, Rome, of course, for regional classics like gnocchi. And Korea, because who doesn't like Korean fried chicken?
And Melbourne also made the list. And I'm glad about that, because you would expect Melbourne to make the list. So Melbourne was voted because of its multicultural food pots, so Greek, Italian, Vietnamese, Lebanese, Ethiopian and Chinese, and not to mention, of course, our own distinctive fusion foods.
And Spain appears again. This time it's Malaga, down in the south. And it might surprise you to learn the most famed dish here is grilled sardines.
Yeah. Well, this list has made me very hungry, but I do not like sardines. And we'll put the full list in the show notes.
That's a wrap for The World Awaits this week. Click to subscribe anywhere you listen to your favourite pods. And where can people find you, Kirstie?
I'm at Kirstie Writes on Instagram. That's Kirstie Writes, WRITES. And where can people find you, Belle?
You can find me at globalsalsa.com or on Insta at global_salsa.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.